I'm Emiliano Lasansky. I'm from Iowa City, Iowa, and I play the bass, double bass, and electric bass. Where I'm from, there's nothing like New York. There's not a lot going on. I grew up in a family of artists, not musicians, but visual artists, and I think growing up around them, I really learned a lot about what it means every day to work in the arts and be an artist, and the commitment that takes and the amount of time you need to spend and the seriousness you need to have for your craft. My dad is a huge Beatles fan, and when the Beatles broke up, he gave up on rock and roll and became like a classical and jazz fan. And so growing up, my dad used to have this Jeep with a 5 CD disc changer, and each one of those CDs was a fusion album, like a classic fusion album with a great bass player on it. So like Weather Report, Return to Forever with Stanley Clarke, and there's this Dave Grusin album with Marcus Miller on it. And so growing up, I heard a lot of like great electric bass players. And so around 7 or 8, I started taking violin lessons, and I also wanted to learn how to play electric bass because it's an instrument that I've been hearing a lot growing up. Eventually, I guess that turned into me just loving all types of jazz and learning how to play it as well as I can, and then eventually, I suppose, pursuing it as a life career. I've been working in a project with Daniel Dickinson, who plays alto and tenor saxophone in this group, and then Connor Kent, who plays drums and some percussion too in this group, for about the last 5 or 6 months since I moved here. Really, when you talk about what makes any group original in jazz, it's really the personalities of the musicians that make up that group, because jazz is such an individual music. Each musician has such a personal approach to the way they play jazz, really. So I think with us as a group, what makes it unique is we each kind of have different backgrounds. I mean, I'm from the Midwest, Connor's from the West Coast, and Dan is from Florida. Each person plays an equally important role. The music we play is much more driven by counterpoint, so I find myself a lot of times having to stay work in a certain zone, really, to help outline the harmony and also to create this counterpoint. But other times, since there isn't that harmonic instrument kind of like holding the harmony of the tune in the same place the whole time, it also gives us the freedom to, shift around, do things that aren't necessarily strictly written in the composition. I think outside of the commitment that it takes to be an artist, like as a freelance musician, it takes a certain level of commitment to wake up every day and say, I'm gonna be regimented about, getting my practicing done, getting my composing done, and getting my, business stuff done, and taking care of all of that stuff. It takes a certain level of discipline, and that is definitely a factor, but I think much more important and beneath all of that is an ability to understand the world around you and to express that through some artistic medium.